On my 65th birthday, I woke up alone again, just as I had for the past 15 years. The small apartment in Portland seemed even more deserted as I shuffled to the kitchen to make my morning coffee. A lonely little card from the church, the only one that still remembered me, sat quietly on the table. Next to it was a photo of my son Ryan, frozen in time from 15 years ago, the last picture I had of him. I gently touched his face through the glass, recalling the little boy who once needed my goodnight kiss to fall asleep and who would crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. How did we end up here? How did I become the mother my son acted as if she did not exist? Working double shifts as a nurse after his father left was never a choice but a necessity. Every extra hour meant Ryan could get the books he needed, have sports gear, and eventually attend college fully paid by me. But for him, those long hours felt like abandonment. My careful management of money turned into controlling behavior, and my advice felt like interference. The final straw came over just $5,000. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance, Mom. MedTech Solutions is going to change everything," he said, with the fierce determination I had seen in his eyes before. The same look he had with 3 previous ventures that had drained his savings. "I can't, Ryan. That money is reserved for emergencies," I replied, seeing the disappointment on his face. Ryan had changed into someone I no longer recognized. "You have always been this way, controlling and suspicious. How can you claim you love me yet refuse to trust me? It is my money you care about, not my affection," I responded. These were words I regretted with every passing day since making that decision on my birthday morning. No more solitary anniversaries. Several hours later, I found myself parked outside his home in Seattle, a stunning 2-story residence in a neighborhood beyond what my nurse's paycheck could ever afford. Through the window, I noticed balloons. It was no surprise our birthdays coincided. My son was turning 40 today. My hands shook as I pressed the doorbell. Laughter from inside instantly ceased sounds of footsteps neared, and then Ryan emerged looking prosperous in a costly sweater, his expression hardening the moment he saw me. "What are you doing here?" His voice was cold, like ice slipping between us, before I could reply. A woman stepped out beside him. Vanessa, his wife, who eyed me with obvious disdain. "Today is not a good time," Ryan said, while closing the door, but not before I caught sight of a child dashing through the living room, a boy I had never met, my grandson. "Please," I murmured, "I just wanted to wish you happy birthday." "You are not welcome here." I thought I made that clear. The door shut in my face, leaving me rooted on the porch, tears streaming down my cheeks as the celebration continued inside without pause after 15 years apart. Not even my own son could spare a moment. 5 minutes into our shared birthday, I drove home lost in thought, trying to figure out what stung more, being rejected once again, or realizing there was a child I had no idea existed. Months slipped by as I immersed myself in volunteer work at the local library, where piles of books needing sorting offered no judgment or rejection. It was there that I met Eleanor, a graceful retired attorney with piercing eyes that seemed to notice everything. One afternoon she sat down opposite me and said, "You seem to be carrying a heavy burden." I recognized that expression immediately. At first I avoided her concern, but Eleanor's straightforward manner soon pierced my defenses. Before long, I found myself sharing everything with her. "Ryan, the whole mess on my birthday," I explained. "Have you ever tried reaching out to him?" she inquired. I let out a bitter laugh. "I have sent him letters, emails, birthday messages, 15 years worth, all either unopened or completely ignored." Eleanor considered this quietly. But have you sent him the honest truth? Not what you think he wants to hear, but the raw truth? That night, I wrote by hand until my fingers ached. I spilled my soul onto those pages, admitting how my controlling nature stemmed from the fear of losing him, just as I had lost his father. I confessed how watching his life from afar through mutual friends had been my only way to connect. I expressed the desperate wish to know my grandson without excuses, only sincerity and regret. 3 weeks later, a manila envelope arrived, and my hands trembled with anticipation. As I tore it open, hope blossomed, fragile like a foolish bubble inside. Inside were the jagged pieces of my letter, torn into sharp fragments. Confetti scattered around a yellow sticky note that simply stated, "Stop trying to enter our lives." I remained frozen, the shattered fragments of my heart resting loosely on my lap, just like the letter in my bedroom closet. There was a box holding 15 years of unopened birthday presents for a grandson who had no idea who I was. That evening, I added the ripped letter to the collection. The following day at the library, I overheard someone mention that Ryan had been promoted to Vice President of Marketing at Brightpath Industries, not at MedTech Solutions, the company for which he had requested $5,000 from me. A quick online search revealed that MedTech had gone bankrupt 2 years after our falling out. My curiosity dragged me further into Ryan's online world. His social media portrayed a perfectly crafted existence with a beautiful family vacationing in exotic destinations. Beneath one beach photograph, his caption read, "Celebrating my promotion. Who needs family when you have success?" I closed my laptop, an unusual calm washing over me. 15 years of pleading for fragments of love were enough. I would stop struggling for someone who had erased me from his life story so utterly. That night, I gathered all the unsent cards and gifts and locked them away in a storage box, not ready to throw them out, but accepting that they belonged to a reality that would never be mine. Time to start living for myself, I whispered into the empty room. Little did I know how dramatically that choice would transform everything. 1 year later, I barely recognized my existence and my small circle of friends. As my circle of friends expanded, I decided to join a book club through the local library. At Eleanor's urging, I even gave water aerobics a try, though I mostly just engaged in what could be described as enthusiastic splashing. While checking out at Morgan's Market, the cashier asked, "Anything else?" as I wrapped up paying for my groceries. He then motioned toward the lottery ticket display boasting jackpots reaching up to $220 million. Tickets were flying off the shelves. I seldom played the lottery, having witnessed for many years how some patients squandered their rent money on gambling, which had left me quite skeptical about games of chance. Yet something, maybe the milestone of making it through an entire year without contacting Ryan, gave me pause. Why not one ticket? I thought, handing over $2. The ticket soon slipped to the bottom of my purse, forgotten. 3 evenings later, while absent-mindedly turning on the evening news during dinner, the announcer's voice interrupted my thoughts. Tonight's Powerball numbers are... My hand paused mid-bite as the numbers appeared on the screen. Slowly, I reached into my purse and pulled out the crumpled ticket. I checked it once, twice, 3 times, my heart pounding so fiercely that the announcer's confirmation barely registered. There was a single winner in Portland, Oregon. I remained frozen in my seat until midnight, staring at the ticket. $220 million. It felt unreal, impossible. Yet it was true. When I contacted the attorney the next day, she looked just as stunned. "Miss Wilson," she said, "you do realize the lump sum after taxes is $128 million. I nodded silently, still in shock. The attorney explained Oregon permits winners to keep some privacy by claiming through trusts or limited liability companies. The name will be part of the public record, but we could come up with something more general since he described the procedure in detail. A memory surfaced. Ryan's face when I refused to hand him the $5,000, his bitterness over my lack of faith in his choices. Now here I was, trying to manage far more money than I could grasp. "You have no idea how many people will show up out of nowhere," the lawyer cautioned. "Relatives you have not heard from in decades will suddenly claim how close you were." The word family lingered between us. Ryan's face flashed in my mind, followed by a quick image of my grandson I had seen just before the door was closed in my face. A strange sensation came over me. Not excitement or joy, but something sharper. For 15 years I had felt powerless, begging for scraps of attention. Now, for the first time, I held all the power. "Set up the trust," I said softly. "Also, I want to talk about keeping this matter as confidential as possible." Leaving his office into the bright sunshine of Portland, I experienced a feeling I hadn't known for many years: true power. 6 months went by as I followed my financial advisor's advice, creating the Wilson Family Trust to handle the lottery winnings. I kept a low profile. Outwardly, nothing changed. I continued volunteering at the library, lived in my apartment, and drove my 10-year-old Honda. "You are the most disciplined lottery winner I have ever known," Eleanor commented over coffee. She was my only trusted friend and had observed my careful approach. I developed a plan while avoiding the typical lottery winner extravagances. "I learned self-control raising a child on a nurse's salary," I said. "Besides, flashy spending draws unwanted attention." I did allow myself one well-thought-out treat, a modest yet charming 3-bedroom home in a peaceful Portland neighborhood. To explain the purchase to friends, I mentioned casually that I had sold some family land in the Midwest that had been tied up in legal battles for years. About 6 months after receiving my winnings, I was organizing books at the library when my phone buzzed with an email alert. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the sender's name, Ryan Wilson. "Mum, it's been a long time. Have you heard from Sarah Miller? You moved to a better house, I hear. Is everything all right? Maybe we can catch up sometime." 15 years of silence, and now this casual note as if we had spoken just last week. I leaned against the bookshelf, my hands trembling. That evening, I searched for Bright Path Industries and found they were caught in a scandal involving marketing ethics. Several executives were under internal investigation, and Ryan's name was mentioned in numerous reports. The timing seemed too convenient to be accidental. Ryan's sudden contact after 15 years, just as his career was falling apart, and right after I might have come into some money. I carefully composed a reply. "Ryan, it's good to hear from you. Yes, I did sell some family property and move to a safer neighborhood." "Neighborhood, how are you and your family doing?" His response came within minutes, warmer, longer, mentioning his demanding work situation and introducing my grandson Nathan is 12. Now he has always wanted to meet his grandmother. Maybe we could have lunch sometime. Always wished to meet me. The boy who never knew I existed until Ryan needed something. I stared at my phone, a peculiar calm engulfing me for 15 years. I would have given anything for this invitation. Now it seemed empty, transparent. Yet there was Nathan, the innocent, amidst all this. A child who deserved to know his grandmother, despite his parents' intentions. "I'd really love that," I answered even. As plans started to form in my mind, Seattle's Harbor View restaurant was Ryan's choice. posh enough to impress with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. I arrived ahead of time, dressed simply but elegantly in a blue dress I had treated myself. My only visible sign of newfound means was my car, a brand new Volvo SUV, which I justified as safer for potential visits from a grandson. Ryan, Vanessa, and Nathan showed up exactly on time. Ryan appeared thinner than I recalled, stress etched into his handsome features. Vanessa looked flawless in designer outfits that struggled to conceal her shrewd glance. And Nathan. My heart clenched, seeing him tall for 12, bearing Ryan's eyes and a wary demeanour that broke my heart, Nathan. I whispered, holding back the impulse to embrace him. "I'm so happy to finally meet you," the boy said, glancing nervously at his father before offering his hand politely. "Nice to meet you too, Mrs. Wilson," he added. "You can call me Grandma," I responded warmly, "or Margaret, if that feels better for you." Ryan immediately guided us to our table, taking control of the conversation by sharing stories about Nathan's academic successes and sports wins, as though describing qualifications on a resume rather than a child. During lunch, Ryan and Vanessa bombarded me with questions about the inheritance from the family estate. "It must have been quite substantial to afford a place in that neighbourhood," Vanessa remarked, scrutinizing my modest jewellery as if to judge its worth. I skillfully redirected the focus back to Nathan. "What subjects do you like at school?" His face brightened enthusiastically. "Science and history. I'm actually working on a project about immigration patterns currently," he shared eagerly. Ryan interrupted. "Nathan excels at everything, top of his class, just like I was." I caught Nathan's shoulders drop a little when interrupted, his excitement fading. It painfully reminded me of Ryan at his age, when his own father would ignore his achievements. When the check arrived, Ryan theatrically patted his pockets. "Looks like I left my wallet in my other jacket," he said. I smiled calmly, spotting the costly watch still on his wrist, and quietly took care of the bill. In the parking lot, Ryan mentioned casually, "We're going—" The company was going through a difficult period with restructuring underway, and Nathan's private school fees were approaching. I nodded without much response, feeling grateful just to be reconnecting as Ryan and Vanessa argued loudly near their car. Nathan approached me cautiously and said in a quiet voice, "You don't look sick." "Sick?" He glanced nervously back at his parents. "Dad said you had a brain illness that made you confused and weak. That's why you never came to visit or call." My heart sank, but before I could answer, Ryan sharply called for Nathan. The boy quickly took my phone and typed something before hurrying back to his parents. While driving home, I checked the phone. Nathan had saved his contact details along with a simple message asking, "Can we talk sometime?" Tears blurred my eyes, but they were no longer from sorrow. They were from a much darker feeling. Anger. Ryan increased his attempts to contact me. In the weeks after our lunch, each message carried subtle allusions to his financial troubles. Meanwhile, I built a delicate connection with Nathan through text, carefully avoiding any direct contradiction of Ryan's falsehoods, but sharing stories about my active volunteer work and trips with friends. One evening, Nathan messaged, "Did you really climb Mount Hood last year? Dad said your condition sometimes makes walking difficult." I replied with a photo of myself at Timberline Lodge saying, "The view from the peak was absolutely stunning. I've always loved—" His reply was swift. Dad must have been mistaken then. One afternoon, Nathan brought up his upcoming history presentation. It is about immigration trends, including how your parents journeyed to America. I wish you could attend, but it is scheduled for a Thursday next month. My heart raced. I might be able to drive up for it. Really? I can add you to the visitor list. Each student is allowed 4 family spots. On the day of the presentation, I arrived at Seattle Prep an hour early with my heart pounding as I signed in at the main office. The receptionist greeted me warmly. "You must be Nathan's grandmother. He has been so eager for you to come." In the hallway, I met Mr. Collins, Nathan's history teacher, who shook my hand with enthusiasm. "Mrs. Wilson, Nathan has told us you might visit. It is fantastic to finally meet you." I asked, "Finally?" He nodded. "Yes. After all these years hearing about your condition, it is incredible to see how well you are doing. Nathan completed a whole project about neurodegenerative diseases last year, based on your experience." Suddenly, the floor seemed to sway beneath me as Mr. Collins looked uneasy. "The early onset, dementia," Richard explained at every parent-teacher conference. "How you couldn't travel or manage social events. Nathan even raised funds for research." He trailed off after seeing my reaction. "You didn't know?" I steadied myself against the wall. Richard had not just excluded me from their lives. He had woven an entire tale. Portraying me as mentally unfit while I was sending cards and letters pleading to be included, he was telling everyone, even my own grandson, that I was too sick to function. The presentation started before I could fully absorb this shocking news. I sat stiffly in the back row, watching Nathan speak confidently about his family history, incorporating facts I had shared in my messages seamlessly into his story. When he noticed me, his expression brightened briefly, but quickly returned to focus on his speech. Later, as families mingled in the hallway, I saw Ryan and Vanessa arrive, scanning the crowd. Ryan's face went pale when he spotted me talking with Mr. Collins. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, pulling me aside. "Nathan invited me," I said calmly, though my heart was pounding. "Interesting that Mr. Collins mentioned my condition, the dementia you've been accusing me of having for years." Ryan's eyes flicked nervously around the room. "This is not the right place, no." I agreed with a steady voice despite my hands trembling. "It isn't, but we will talk about this soon." As I walked away, Nathan caught up to me, smiling. "You came." I hugged him. During our first embrace, I glimpsed Ryan's cold and calculating stare. The battle lines were drawn, and for the first time in 15 years, I was not the one at a loss. He told everyone I had dementia. Eleanor almost dropped her tea when I shared the school revelation. "That is monstrous, Margaret," she said. I nodded, still in shock. After surrendering to a growing anger, I barely recognized within myself, while I was busy sending cards and gifts, Ryan was revealing truths. Nathan, I was too, unwell to even remember who he was. Eleanor placed her cup down with the steadiness of someone restraining fury. "What will you do next?" she asked. "I am unsure," I confessed. A part of me wants to expose him and tell Nathan everything, but that would only bring pain to the boy. I met her gaze firmly. And the other part wants to discover the full extent of this situation. The following day, Eleanor put me in touch with Martin Reeves, a discreet private investigator whom she had used in her legal career. "Just gathering information," she assured me. "Nothing illegal." Martin's discoveries went beyond my worst fears. Ryan was drowning in debt with a mortgage underwater, credit cards maxed out, and high-interest loans. The Bright Path scandal involved promotional campaigns that exaggerated benefits and minimized side effects of certain medications bearing Ryan's approval signature. "He is facing possible dismissal," Martin explained. "The company was conducting internal inquiries before the FDA stepped in. The most alarming revelation was in Nathan's school records. Ryan and Vanessa had requested his transfer to an international school in Vancouver, Canada. The application demanded a significant deposit and proof of Canadian residency within 30 days. They planned to escape using my money. Ryan's pressure grew stronger with his subtle threats. Growing increasingly obvious Nathan's school plans to raise tuition fees, he mentioned this during a recent call, along with the housing market situation. There is a chance we may need to significantly reduce our living space. During a video chat, supposedly, so Nathan could share his science project, Vanessa inadvertently left investment brochures visible in the background. These brochures showcased real estate developments in Vancouver. I kept up my act of unaware sympathy while setting my trap. I casually brought up my intention to visit a financial advisor to revise my will to include Nathan. I also arranged for Vanessa to accidentally notice large bank statements in my purse during a brief coffee meeting. The sum revealed was only a fraction of my total wealth, but enough to capture their full attention. "This feels wrong," I whispered to Eleanor after explaining my schemes. She gripped my hand and said, "The difference is your goal. They want to exploit you and vanish, while you aim to safeguard Nathan and possibly create something genuine." Later that night, Nathan sent a text. "Dad and Mum are fighting a lot. I heard them talking about Vancouver again. Dad says you are the solution to everything if he can close the deal soon." What could that mean? I stared at my phone, heart aching for this child trapped in his parents' intrigues. No matter what happens next, Nathan deserves better. "I'm not sure, sweetheart," I replied, "but do not worry. I promise I will always be here for you no matter what." It was a promise I intended to keep. The plan would not fail, like the ones Ryan had been attempting for years. "I appreciate you making time for dinner, just the two of us," Ryan said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. He had chosen another pricey restaurant in Seattle, significantly beyond what his financial means should permit. "Of course," I responded, observing my son across the table in the gentle lighting. I could still see the boy I had raised, a faint spark beneath the facade of the desperate man he had turned into. Ryan began a clearly practiced speech about family and reconciliation, carefully designed to tug at my emotions. "I have been too proud," he confessed with a rehearsed humility, "clinging to old grudges when we should be coming together as a family." I nodded in encouragement, noticing how his gaze briefly shifted to my purse near the table. "Nathan adores you," he added. "He talks about you all the time. Having his grandmother in his life means a great deal." I honestly replied, "I cherish our bond. He is an extraordinary boy." Ryan leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Mum, there is something important I need to talk about, an opportunity that could solve several problems at once." Here it comes, I thought. I am starting a new company, a consulting firm specializing in pharmaceutical marketing compliance. The irony. He chuckled without any humor. "With my insider knowledge of what to avoid, I can assist companies in navigating regulations with integrity," he claimed. Ryan spoke with a focused look as he explained his business plan, pointing out how the estimated startup expenses perfectly aligned with the amount he owed. "I'm giving you an opportunity to invest in something important," he finished. "Not just a business with great potential returns, but our family's future. If you support this new venture, and maybe help ease our current financial difficulties, I promise you we'll always be a part of Nathan's life." My son was essentially trading access to my grandson. I mirrored his words. "You are not asking for charity. You are proposing a partnership in both business and family." He nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. And we will be nearby, well, somewhat close." Vancouver has a growing biotech industry. Nathan is already on the waiting list for Cambridge International Academy. It is very selective, only admitting 50 students per grade. We must secure his place with a deposit by next week. I took a sip of water to stall, thinking about the move. Vancouver, British Columbia, quite a major change, a fresh beginning, he added smoothly. For all of us, really. You could visit any time. Just as Martin had realized, they were aiming to take my money and escape across the border. I answered cautiously. I need time to consider this. Ryan's smile became tighter. Don't delay too long. These chances have deadlines. Later that night, I received a message from Nathan. Grandma, I heard Mum and Dad arguing after you left. Dad said they need to seal the agreement with the elderly lady before she changes her mind. I think they were referring to you when they mentioned moving to Canada, though they have not told me anything. Please do not reveal that I shared this. I sat alone in the darkness of my bedroom, feeling an unusual sense of calm wash over me. For 15 years I had grieved the loss of my relationship with Ryan. Now I was mourning something else entirely, the boy I had believed to be my son. It was time to bring this pretense to a close. I'm delighted you could all make it for the weekend, I said, as I warmly welcomed Ryan, Vanessa, and Nathan into my home in Portland. I had suggested their visit under the guise of wanting to discuss an investment choice, a bait they found irresistible. My new residence was cozy without being lavish, a conscious decision to uphold my cover story. Still, I caught Vanessa's eyes scanning every corner, silently appraising their worth. Lovely place, Mom, Ryan commented, his eyes pausing on the original art displayed in the entryway. Definitely a step up from your old apartment. I responded vaguely. The sale of our family property went smoothly, and then I turned to Nathan. Would you like to see the room I set up for you? There is a telescope on the balcony, and on clear days you can enjoy a view of Mount Hood. Throughout the weekend, I observed Ryan and Vanessa closely. They played the part of affectionate parents when they believed I was watching, but in quieter moments, their impatience with Nathan showed through as they cut him off and dismissed his stories. Interests clashed, and annoyed looks were exchanged when he asked questions while we were alone. Nathan visibly calmed down, his nervous hesitation vanishing, as his enthusiasm for science and history shone through in lively discussions. He reminded me so much of Ryan at that age before bitterness set in. On a Saturday afternoon, while Ryan and Vanessa went out for a walk, which I suspected was actually a strategy meeting, Nathan showed me a flyer he had found in his father's briefcase. Cambridge International Academy, he said, pointing at pictures of an impressive building in Vancouver. His father's briefcase was open, and I noticed it. I don't want to go there, Grandma. All my friends are in Seattle, and I have only just found you. I hugged him tightly and promised, whatever happens, we will not lose contact again. That evening, I prepared a special meal after spending the whole day cooking Ryan's favorite dishes from childhood. Pot roast with carrots and potatoes, warm rolls, and apple pie for dessert. As we sat down, Ryan and Vanessa shared meaningful looks. They believed this nostalgic dinner marked my surrender. After the meal, I invited everyone to the living room and announced, I have something important to say. I watched Ryan and Vanessa lean in with interest. 15 years ago, Ryan, you left my life because of money. $5,000. I would not lend you that today. It seems money is the only reason you have come back. Ryan's smile faltered. Mom, that is not fair. I raised my hand to silence him. Ryan's face went pale as I set a folder down on the coffee table. It contained every detail, The fabrications about my dementia, your monetary struggles, the Vancouver plans you have been concealing from Nathan, and the Bright Path inquiry. I understand now why you suddenly recalled having a mother after 15 years. Vanessa sprang to her feet abruptly, exclaiming, "This is unacceptable. You invaded our privacy." I responded with calm assurance. I was protecting myself. Ryan's initial shock shifted into fury. So this entire attempt at reconciliation was a scheme. You are no better than we are. I replied softly. The difference is that I sincerely wished to know my grandson, while your motive was solely my money. Nathan's voice cut through the tense atmosphere. Is it true, Dad, about Grandma's illness and the Vancouver situation? The silence that ensued spoke volumes and confirmed everything he needed to hear. The following morning, after a night filled with harsh revelations, we assembled once more in my living room. Ryan appeared worn and stressed. Vanessa was on edge. And Nathan wore the lost expression of a child whose reality had suddenly been upended. I offered a proposition, placing a manila envelope on the table. Ryan eyed it with suspicion, asking if it contained more investigator findings. I assured him it was a potential resolution. I outlined my conditions clearly. I would clear their mortgage and create an educational trust for Nathan, but they must remain living in Seattle. Nathan would spend 1 weekend a month with me, and Ryan would have to confront the Bright Path matter directly. The situation with Bright Path needs to be addressed honestly instead of running away, and most importantly, all of us, including myself, would attend family therapy, Vanessa stated firmly. I corrected her, explaining that I was offering a path forward, not simply throwing money at the issue and hoping it would vanish, which was your plan, was it not? Ryan's face flushed with anger as he said, "You have no right to control our lives." "No," I admitted, "I do not. You are free to refuse and proceed with your intentions in Vancouver if you can fund them, trying to escape the Bright Path investigation. But Nathan remains in my life no matter what. You cannot avoid that." "I can apply for grandparent visitation rights," I interrupted, "especially given the proven pattern of deceit you have maintained. Eleanor has already prepared the documents. This was a calculated risk since grandparent rights are challenging to enforce, but Ryan was unaware of that. "You are threatening us," he said, voice trembling. I told him I am giving you a chance to rebuild something genuine, not based on lies or money, but honesty. It will not be simple since trust is broken on all fronts, but Nathan deserves better than what any of us have provided so far. Vanessa, ever practical, examined the financial details in the envelope. "We need time to think this over." Nathan, who had remained quiet earlier, finally spoke. "Why did you lie about Grandma all these years?" he asked his father. "Why did you tell everyone she was ill?" Ryan could not meet his son's gaze. "It was complicated, Nathan." "No, it was not." Nathan's voice carried a new firmness as he declared you lied because it was simpler than admitting the truth that you did not want me to meet her. In that moment, I noticed a change in my grandson, a sudden awareness of adult imperfection that arrives too soon for some children. He looked at his father not with anger, but with a deep sense of disappointment, perhaps the most painful expression a parent can see, reflected in their child's eyes. "I believe Grandma's idea is good," Nathan said softly. "I want to try therapy. I want to stay in Seattle with my friends, and I want her to be part of my life." Ryan regarded his son as though seeing him for the first time, not as a mere extension of himself or a pawn in the game of life, but as an individual with his own thoughts and emotions. "Nathan," he started to say, but paused, unable to finish his sentence. Vanessa took the documents in her hands, her practical instincts taking over. "We will review these conditions," she said firmly as they got ready to leave. That afternoon, Nathan embraced me tightly. "I will see you in 2 weeks," he murmured. "No matter what they decide?" It was not a question, but a vow, the first sign of independence from a boy growing into his own person. And despite everything, I felt a spark of hope. 18 months later, I adjust the birthday decorations in Ryan's backyard in Seattle. Today, we are celebrating 3 special occasions: my 67th birthday, Ryan's 42nd, and Nathan's graduation from middle school. The crowd is small, just a close circle gathered together. The Eleanor family, who travelled with me along with several of Nathan's friends, embarked on this journey. This day was far from easy. Ryan initially agreed to my terms more out of necessity than genuine willingness. He cooperated with Britpath's inquiry, accepting a noticeable demotion instead of losing his job. Vanessa briefly thought about divorce, but soon acknowledged her part in their issues. Her desire for status and readiness to ignore questionable decisions to preserve their lifestyle played a significant role. Our therapy sessions exposed painful realities: Ryan's bitterness over my long hours at work, his feelings of abandonment after his own father left. Vanessa's insecurities, rooted in her troubled family background, also came to light. We discovered layers of pain that had been festering for years. The initial 6 months were the toughest. Ryan often shut down emotionally during our meetings, while Vanessa switched between cooperating and showing passive aggression. I faced my own guilt related to having been too controlling over Ryan during his younger years. Nathan, caught in the middle, gradually found his own voice, making us adults realize the impact of our behaviors on him. Nathan's monthly trips to Portland became a sacred time, initially accompanied by one of his parents, and later traveling alone after turning 14. These visits offered a break from the ongoing tension at home and created opportunities for honest conversations away from everyday stress. Slowly, almost unnoticed, changes began to take place. Ryan was forced to confront the consequences of his actions. Observing his decisions and seeing how Nathan thrived alongside me in his life gradually broke down his walls. During one especially tough session, he finally confessed the reality behind his intricate deception about my condition. He explained it was simpler to claim you were ill than to admit I had excluded you out of pride. And then I became trapped in that falsehood for years. Now, watching Nathan proudly present Ryan his science fair project on the patio, something that seemed impossible only a year ago, gives me hope. Vanessa approaches with 2 glasses of lemonade. Though he still finds it hard to speak, she quietly gestures toward Ryan and says, "Things are changing. He mentioned you yesterday, recalling good memories he had forgotten." "Families are complex," I respond. "None of us manage to get everything right all the time." Later, after everyone departs, Nathan hands me a gift, a photo album he put together throughout the year. It blends old pictures of Ryan and me with recent ones showing all of us together. On the final page, there is a current photo of the 4 of us, accompanied by the simple words, "Family imperfect, but ours." It dawned on me then that my real triumph was not the lottery, which remains a secret I never fully disclosed, though Ryan and Vanessa sometimes guess the true origin of my wealth. My real achievement was rediscovering that family is not about flawlessness, but perseverance. Not about money, but about investing time. Not about revenge, but about the bravery to confront harsh realities and start anew, even when it feels unattainable. That night, alone in my hotel room, I finally opened the box. I had stored the torn fragments of my letter and the presents that were never handed over. I choose some of these things to keep as tokens of the experience, not as reminders of pain, but as signs of a challenging road that eventually brought me to a better place. The past cannot be undone, yet the future continues to unfold gradually, one day after another. I appreciate you listening. Please remember to subscribe and do not hesitate to share your own story in the comments, since your voice is important.